Api papa te hoi, toi tu te hoi, toi kapa kapa te hoi. Te hoi nā wai, te hoi nā te kaununui, te hoi nā wai nā te kauroro, te hoi nā rangi nui e tūne, tēnā te waka kātau, ki tipu a te rangi ki tapito tarangi, ngā tūranga whatua rehua, ka pai e kau te kakau hotoku hoi, ko te roku au whiti. Whiti patato, rere patato, mama patato, te riakanga, te hāpainga, te komotanga, te puehutanga, te wai o tōku hoi. Kei te rangi hikitia, kei te rangi hāpainga, kei te rangi tū te tono nātu, kei te rangi tū te tono mai, kei te rangi tū te ihi, kei te rangi tū te wehi, kei te rangi tū te tapu he tapu, tēnā te ara kā tōtoe, te ara o tāna māto he nuku, te ara o tāna māto he rangi, ka te ara o te kaununui, te ara o te kauroro, ka tira e ronga o ka iria, tapitia ki a reua, aumi e hui e, tāiki e. In Māoridom, we always look back into the past to find our significance, to know who we are and who they were and what were their meanings in a place like this. We should say this is where our grassroots began. And we think upon our elders as the one to guide us into the future.
From the rangi to the papa and everything in between, all that is Wahi Tapu. And it's a psychological and it's a mental and it's a spiritual thing that we're talking about here. We're not talking just about it being a sacred site.
Some people have a perspective that Wahi Tapu, some Wahi Tapu have archaeological features or properties, but certainly from Ngāti Mutunga's perspective, Wahi Tapu is really the connection that we have as Ngāti Mutunga with important landmarks, places and the like. And so usually a Wahi Tapu is characterised by not only physical features but also cultural values and characteristics which may sit with a particular place or site, and this can be referenced by an event that occurred, and it's usually an event or the place in which that Wahi Tapu or that pā has in terms of our tribal history and identity.
The Wahi Tapu to me is the history, is the it holds the history of the past, and I think without it, without the knowledge of having Wahi Tapu for us, is that it's to be able to give that history to our whānau.
I mean, we need to sort of view this notion of Wahi Tapu today in its context, and that they are physical, tangible reminders of the way in which our ancestors lived, and you know, their footprints remain in those areas, and they tell us, you could sort of say from an archaeological perspective, the foods and other things and the way they lived, but from a cultural perspective it is a reminder of the footprint of our ancestors on our landscape. And so, you know, they could be a midden pit or it could be an entire cultural landscape.
When we talk about Wahi Tapu, we're not only just talking about the physical layout of the pā, or we're not just talking about what you can see. We're also talking about those relationships. We're talking about the spiritual side. We're talking about the events that happened here. So all those concepts we see as the Wahi Tapu.
We're fortunate that we can come back to places like this and think about the past, get our strength up and going again. We think of them, that they came across these seas. They were landless, they were wanderers, looking for a place to live, looking for a place to call their own.
Yeah, when we come, we usually bring our families, and our families who've left here years ago and wanted to come back to their roots. One of the places we bring them is here, to Orangiru, Tuapeka, Ngā Teko, Waimate, and there was another pā site here, Whare Nui.
Ngā wā e tamariki ana mātou, e haere mātou, hi koe atu, e akongia ngā wāhi e kimi atu e kai. Engari ki mei a tātou kui a tātou tau eke, kau e koutou aere ki reira e Wahi Tapu tēnā. Karongo mātou, ka ate aere mātou ki ngā wā i pērā, ka are whakatoi, ka are whaka i.
The old people, they wouldn't let us come up here, and we came up with them, and they would sit down here and and talk to us and give us their thoughts of what happened here at Te Kohi.
What did they say to you?
Well, boy, let me tell you the history of what happened here. And they would go on and talk, and sometimes we listen, sometimes we attracted to other things, but we always go back and we say yes koe or yes koro. We realise what happened here.
We see people who live out here and we acknowledge they live here. It's a shame they don't acknowledge that they're living on the bones of our ancestors or on our old pā sites, or that their new gravel pit is actually the destruction of an old pā. Ngari te tiro atu nei ki a rātou, e takataka ia atu a tātou whenua I reira. I te mōhio e maa ngā wā e Wahi Tapu kia mātou. Kāre mātou e whakae, e tū mai ana ngā wāhi, ngā whare I reira, I runga a tātou whenua. Engari tēnā no te kuaretanga o ngā tangata aere mai mahi pēnei ai.
This is not an isolated a case where the status of the pā sits with the farmer, and that particularly Tāngau Hoi and Ngāti Ruanui haven't pursued this particular site as being a significant site. It's a significant site in the heart, but not yet as official and in the council records as being one.
We have people, developers and the like, who have a particular view and desire to undertake certain activities, often see the economic value as greater than the cultural value or the iwi values that may sit with a particular place. So there's always going to be that tension, and I think for me it's really understanding the value and the place of these sites of Wahi Tapu.
Our concerns revolve around the environment. Our concerns revolve around the old places where our ancestors were and the protection of those places. Our concerns revolve around a really basic responsibility to look after these places. And although the government confiscated our land and refuses to give it back, our responsibilities remain in place. There's nothing to give us relief from those responsibilities.
They talk about policies, whereas we talk about tikanga. And so, you know, the difficulty in marriage, we'll never get married. You know what I mean is that they won't ever understand us. But we've just got to be constantly doing that kōrero, walking the talk, despite the disappointments that we've had.
Every time a new crowd comes in, they think we're being, what are the words that are used? Radicals, shit stirrers, haters and wreckers. We're simply trying to carry out a really basic obligation to look after the places that were handed down to us. And it's funny, we've only got the shadow of the land. Everyone else has got ownership, run their cows, build their buildings, put their oil rigs, but we seem to carry all the responsibility for looking after it. And it's not easy.
The treaty speaks of two people, and the relationship between these two people. And that's what we need to build.
For me, it's really about people acknowledging and understanding the rich history that we have, that we live within, in terms of sites like Okoke, that it goes well beyond Te Rangihirua, and that it is a tangible reminder of our ancestors, and that we hold these places in very high regard. We talk about kei konei te Maori, that a Maori exists on these sites, that we feel the wairua of our ancestors, and it's really about acknowledging that these places have value, because they not only tell us about our past and remind us of our past, but also will sort of place us better in our future in terms of the diversity that exists within our region.
This is where our grassroots began. And we think upon our elders as the one to guide us into the future. Because without the past, as we always believe, there is no future. The future is a replay of the past. And that's how Māori don't think about these things. The only thing we have in the present is us, to take the past into the future to the next generation. And if we don't do that and keep these, shall we say, historical places noted, then the next generation will be lost. They wouldn't know where they come from, they wouldn't know where to go. An example of that, we were fortunate to be born on our own papa kāinga. Today, they're born in the city. Where's their grassroots? And they haven't got a connection back to their grassroots, they're lost. But their grassroots is here. All what they need to do is come home and find themselves. And they'll find themselves in the comforting arms of their ancestors. They stood up and they made their mark in history. We need to do the same, otherwise our children will be lost also.